final session, final talk in this session. Have you ever had that thing where you've known someone for years and you've not seen them for a little while, and then you see them and they've got an incredible moustache? That's what happened here. If we could welcome to the stage Antony. He's going to be talking about building a brand with local SEO. If we give him a big round of applause, everybody.
Hi, Brian. It's really kind of interesting how Kelvin manages to put speakers together that you don't understand at the start when you first start to talk. But now I've actually listened to those two talks, I understand it really, really well. So both those are both the previous two talks talking about how to do SERP research. My talk is about how to fix it if you find some irregularity within a SERP. And this was born out of I started working at my current role, which is a company called Uberall, back in April. And these next three slides were absolutely pummeled into me around local SEO and kind of the reason why local SEO is so important. I'm a traditional organic SEO. But actually, when you consider kind of the extreme growth in near-me searches, you suddenly start to realize that there are a lot of problems with SERPs that brands aren't taking care of. So if you think about the research of somebody looking to buy something and doing a near-me search, it could be cheap vodka, which is arguably one of the largest near-me searches that exists. Trust me, I know, I've done the research. As people wander through the research phase of a purchase, the combination of these slides and kind of a personal experience that I had about buying my wife's last birthday present really kind of created the situation where my pitch to speak today occurred. So the reason why it was so powerful is because that birthday present was a Stella McCartney purse. Now, if you do that search in London, the local SERP is absolutely on point. So I can go to any of the three kind of listed Stella McCartney-owned stores. The knowledge graph is perfect. Everything would be really, really good and rosy. Unfortunately, I live in Manchester. So when you do that same Manchester search, yes, their store locator appears, but the knowledge graph directs you to Harvey Nicks. Most of the SERP, rest of the SERP, the entire SERP, is aimed at directing me to Knightsbridge, either Harrods or Harvey Nicks, which is really not great when you've got a 7-year-old and we're going to buy mum a birthday present. So with this kind of search intent and the significantly, stupidly high conversion rate for that near-me search. So if you think kind of a near-me search results in 28% of those searchers making a purchase within 24 hours, that's disproportionately higher than any other kind of stat in terms of purchase stat that I'd heard of in my career, and I've been doing this far too long. So kind of what I wanted to do was kind of talk to you about how, if a SERP is wrong like that, how do we go about fixing it? And it's about building and developing the entity that exists. And that can be a product, it can be a service, or a brand, and ideally all three. So if you're building the brand, inevitably within those kind of location landing pages, what you want to do is create the entity relationships that the brand has both with its services and or products. So what I kind of want to do is kind of wander through the various ranking factors that exist within local search and take one each individually and walk you through. But kind of the majority of them, the 6 that are literally specifically around developing the entity relationship. So some of these kind of individual ranking factors are really obvious. So name, address, and phone number. You've all heard NAP 1,000 times for every local search, which is kind of a little bit of a surprise why I ended up on the main stage, because local search isn't the most popular. It's sometimes seen to be a little bit of organic search poor relation. But given the conversion rates and given the fact that Google is getting SERPs wrong in this sector so much, if you're not doing local SEO well, it becomes a real challenge. So according to Whitespark and the Moz review, these are the ranking signals. They change year to year, up and down. What's really clear, though, is that the entity relationships that sits between them is exactly where that focus needs to occur. So I'll go in order of size, starting at GMB. So, ensuring that your GMB account is well optimized is long in the tooth, apart from there's been 2 beta test elements. So making sure that the location address for a particular store or physical location, you have to get your name, address and telephone number right here on your location land pages. It's not too difficult of a stretch, but so many times when I see within a GMB account, what's happened is a particular location is linked to the homepage of your site. It's a real kind of criminal error that there is no then entity relationship development between a particular location and the brand. So it's really, really important that kind of right at the bottom of that screen, you've got a little example that I'm going to use throughout the rest of the press, which is a decorator centre in Abingdon, a bit like it's a company called Brewers, and literally how we've helped them optimise to make sure that the SERPs fit. So it's making sure that each location landing page literally hits with the contact us page for that particular location. But what's really clear to me is that when you're actually putting the data in, specifically around map location, jump onto the satellite section and put it on the roof. The more accurate that is, the better then reviews start to come. And I'll come on to reviews later, but it really is important that jump onto the Google map and jump onto the satellite view and stick it right on the roof of the particular location. This is where it starts to get fun in terms of account optimization. These are new services that literally this week have come out of beta from Google. And this is around optimizing for products and services and brands that you sell if you're a store. And making this information incredibly rich is where the entity development really starts to build. So in this example, if brewers want to rank for expert decorating service or expert decorating advice and kind of keywords that sit around that, they can now actually optimize that within Google My Business. They can exactly optimize the content on the location landing page to reflect this, and suddenly you then start to develop that entity growth. So I'm not going to talk too long about link signals. We're all long in the tooth. We all know exactly how powerful links are. But with local SEO, it's slightly different. Local SEO, rel equals no follow links work. And yes, I know that there's now rel equals sponsor and rel equals whatever they choose to think of this week. But making sure that your directory network and your backlink profile, again, aren't linking into the homepage, but actually linking straight through to a location landing page is really critical. So an example, you can literally jump onto the Evening Standard and add your name. Very simple, very straightforward. Dive straight into the location landing page URL in order to start and, again, develop the entity relationship between third-party sites and a particular location. Dead obvious review signals. It's incredibly straightforward that Google would use this as a mechanism by which they can determine if a brand is trustworthy. But actually, it starts to be a little bit more in-depth than that. So yes, if you've got a ranking, a review score, an average review score of 4.5, Google's going to see that you're a trusted brand. But actually, what it's also looking for is that you're replying to these reviews. And when I mean replying to the reviews, I mean within less than an hour of when they're there, irrespective of sentiment. So that could, and again, there's really strong correlation to reflect that the brands that are responding, irrespective of sentiment, during their presented opening hours, within an hour, there is a much stronger correlation to ranking first within the map pack. So making sure that there's resource available to actually respond to reviews is really critical to improving that entity relationship. Q&As has been talked about. Q&As is really important within your GMB account. Again, it really elevates that kind of that AI approach that Google is using to understand the relationship that exists. If you're proactive in answering these questions across multiple locations, it really starts to develop that kind of overall view that Google sees of your brand, your product, your locations, and your services. So citation signals, dead simple, dead straightforward. They have to be the same everywhere. And that's capitalization, commas, however you write your address within GMB, it should be the same on location landing pages or contact us pages, and the same then throughout the entire kind of ecosystem that exists. So it's not rocket science, it's really simple, really straightforward. It gives Google the opportunity to go and verify that your address is there. And if that's across multiple locations, it suddenly starts to say, right, okay, yes, there's an ecosystem now around each of these locations. So where should you be? Where should you be kind of checking whether or not your citations and your links are right? So there's plenty of places. So the company I work for, Uberall, does one, Moz does the same. There's a couple of 3 others. But what it is quite interesting view on things in terms of it often, there's so many places that you may be missing or so many places that the data's inaccurate. And it's often a real wake-up call to brands when they see how wrong their citation ecosystem is. So from my perspective, when I'm working with clients, there's various elements that need to be done in terms of where to give those citations to and make where that data needs to be accurate. So for obvious reasons, if you're kind of hoping to appear in a SERP and that SERP provides directions to a particular location, and you're not uploading your data into GMB or to Apple Maps, then how can you expect to rank there? They have to have that information, and that has to be pushed. And the ecosystem here starts to develop that kind of whole entity growth. Behavioral signals is an interesting one. It's kind of got a foot in both camps. So if we believe what Google says, it's around click-through rate. So how can we use our knowledge of improving click-through rate? So the example I've got here is a really similar type searches, but there's 2 design layouts. If we have the design layout that's on the left, we can really impact click-through rate. Because the intent of the search of a near me inevitably results in somebody wanting directions or wanting to buy something, achieve something, get to somewhere. So having a picture, as in the top position, of some shelves doesn't really help me any. I think this is a broken SERP from Google. So whoever is doing the local SEO for Costco, I think is really, really smart. They've created a map icon, so it gives that user the opportunity or the kind of thought process that there's a map icon, that's going to give me directions. So I know for a fact that particular position 2 on the left-hand SERP is 10 times more likely to get a click and is 10 times disproportionately higher than the other 2 above it. So it's about really kind of being smart in terms of which iconography and which kind of imagery we use. Second, so the second best performing would be the Tesco below, where you have an external shot. So it's much better to have an external shot than an internal shot. On-page signals, I could speak all day about. I think that the key thing really is structured data, because it's about data mapping exercise. If you've got your name, address, telephone number, your store opening times, it's incredibly straightforward for Google to determine whether that's the same on your website as it is within GMB. And if it is, obviously, there's a positive influence in terms of that entity growth. Time to first byte, again, and page load speed, both of which I could speak for hours and hours and hours, and I've seen talks that last 20 minutes about them. The thing being is that most store locators and most tend to have a nice picture of a map. You click on the map, zoom in, it pops up using JavaScript to give the address and details on the store locators. As you can appreciate, Google really struggles to be able to index that effectively. So if we believe that Google can execute the JavaScript and read the content on the page, again, open for debate, In order to do that, Google takes the snapshot at 5 seconds. So your full page render needs to occur at 5 seconds. Anything beyond that is not seeing the content. So I guess the other thing that's really critical is around crawlability. So can Google get to the individual location landing pages that start to develop the correlation that exists between GMB and location landing pages? So local personalization, this is where it starts to get fun. So one of the clients that I'm working with at the moment is Waitrose, the supermarket. So what they have is lots of local providers that literally provide particular product lines within a small geographic radius. So again, if you can put and dynamically pull that kind of local specific product content onto a locality landing page, the benefit of the ecosystem that exists, so I'm from Cheshire, so Cheshire cheese is a really good example of one of the kind of dynamic things it pulls into that location landing pages and the entity around kind of locality and product. And it also kind of creates that individualization, that kind of point difference. So not all location landing pages are exactly the same, dull, boring, very, very limited use landing pages other than having a point of contact. So, kind of the last one is social signals. And social signals, for me, are really, really low now in terms of their priority for Google. If you look at that 12, 18 months, maybe 2 years ago, the influence of social signals was really important. All that Google, in my view, is looking at now is quite literally, is there an active Twitter account? Is there location landing pages within Facebook? I think beyond that, there's no real kind of benefit from an SEO perspective. Obviously, client engagement or customer engagement, much, much better. So to kind of finish and bring that back in terms of where I started, in terms of buying my wife's birthday present, with a little bit of work, that SERP's now fixed. It's still not perfect. There's still no knowledge graph. There's still no ability to kind of get directions. And beyond that, when you've got directions to the mall car park, the walking directions into the particular store where they are, and then kind of within the store, the kind of footfall into the actual concession stand. But that's work in progress. So pretty much that's me. I know that kind of you'll be able to get my, if you got me on Twitter, I'll be sharing my slide share with you where you can get to see them. Contact details, obviously email, etc. So if any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Ant.